Lil Baby.
Welcome to episode 67 of Conversations with Chai. I am your host, Aram Chaudhary, aka Lil Baby Ram Ram, and today we are going to get into the Grammys, Valentine's Day, new Marvel announcements, and so much more. We got Rem in here too. What's up, Rem? Hello, everyone. Let's start. Where do we want to start? You know what? Let's start with, because this was going to be my hit list anyway. Let's start with Grammys. This year's Grammys felt. I don't want to be the one that ties it to always Drake, but I'm going to tie it to Drake. This year's Grammys really felt like music's way of telling Drake, hey, we don't really need you anymore. Rem, you caught the Grammys?
I did not watch the Grammys. I watched clips of the Grammys, but
You'll get the point. So this year's Grammys really felt like the music industry was telling Drake, hey, we're good. And the reason I say that, it's like obviously the main thing being the Kendrick sweep, basically. But before I even get into that, just to talk about the Grammys, I thought this year's Grammys did a really good job of being reflective of the music industry at large. It gave shine to Teddy Swims, Doechii, your Sabrina Carpenters, your Chappelle Roans, like they gave such a spotlight to like all these new artists. So like, just again, if you're the music industry, you've been not dependent on Drake, and not that, again, like Drake's absence is still felt, I think, but you've been kind of dependent on this megastar, crossing genres, putting up all the numbers and streaming. But this Grammys like was so much more holistic, right? First you get like your new artist spotlight, like you're spotlighting Doechii, your Teddy Swims, and you're spotlighting them in a way where you're letting them perform. And before you give them awards, you're allowing people who may watch the Grammys or may just see, clips of the Grammys, see their performances. So you're like, okay, like I know who this is, or I know this specific song now. But you go up and down, you're like, first, then you get into obviously the Kendrick sweep. And if I'm Drake, I'm not talking to anybody in the music industry ever again, because they are dancing on the grave and they're having fun doing it. Like, it's not enough that, again, Kendrick sweeped record of the year, rap song of the year. Like, you sweeped 5 for 5. And for the highlight of the night to be, and Kendrick doesn't even look like he really want to be there, but like, just to get his shit off and to have Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Hove, all dancing and jiving to the record that's calling you a pedophile and is essentially putting your career on pause. If I'm Drake, I'm never talking to anyone in the music industry ever again. Like, you got Taylor Swift dancing to Not Like Us. You got Beyonce rapping the verse, and they're not even playing the hook. And then we get into like the real background politics of, you have Lucian Grange dapping up Dr. Dre when Kendrick wins. This was not like, Rem, you work for the Grammys. This did not feel like it was just an accidental. This felt like very intentional.
But like, also, my favorite part of the whole thing is the portion of the song that they chose to play.
The A minor part?
The one part that like calls him out by name is crazy.
And again, it feels so intentional. Like, people think that like the Grammys, like, like people always have these like hard reactions, like, oh, I can't believe Billie Eilish's album didn't win. This shit is not like a popularity contest. This is not, oh, who we like, or like, we like this song or we like this album. That's not what the Grammys is. Like, the Grammys is the epitome of music politics. It's not how good is this album. It's how good was your team? How good was the relationships of getting this album or getting this music to the Grammys? Not to the consumer, to the Grammys. I'm like, you're seeing like Lucian Grange dap up Dr. Dre as Kendrick's going on. And again, like, I think Kendrick handled it well in terms of like, again, like, and he's been obviously doing interviews now leading into the Super Bowl as well, but he's handling the, hey, I know what y'all are doing by using me as the pivot point of we're positioning ourselves against the entity that is Drake. And now Drake is looking at the definition of, oh, it's not me versus Kendrick. It's me versus the industry. It's and he knows that. Like, there's a reason that he just went to Australia when all this shit is going on. He knows that, hey, they're going to do this shit. It's, yo, if you're Drake, you're just like, yo, like you're looking at that and you finally realize, and whether it's Drake, whether it was Michael Jackson, whether it was Prince, artists are always kind of shown that, hey, nobody is bigger than the program. It does not matter how many records you sold. It does not matter how much money you once made us. The reality is that the music industry existed before you were here, and it will exist after you're here. I think when you lose sight of that, as any artist up and coming, thinking like, yo, I am the program. Understand that industries and things are always taken up. That space is always going to be occupied by somebody. I think we get into like our egos a little bit where it's like, oh, if I'm not in the space, like what would the space be? Somebody's going to fill up that spot. If you ask somebody like 3 years ago, like, yo, like, is there a music industry without Drake? They would probably say no. Now, fast forward, music is still going. Like, the Grammys are still happening. There's going to be new stars to fill that spot. Like, the consumers are still going to want new music. So if it's not from you, the machine is going to put somebody there. And honestly, like, I think is like the underrepresented part of all of this. I think a lot of people, like, success creates enemies. A lot of people probably did not eat for a while or ate less because Drake was occupying such a large part of the music industry. When somebody is winning so massively for so long, there are some people out there that are like not getting the checks that they think that they deserve. When somebody is so, and I think that's like the interesting part of like any business, right? Like when somebody is winning so massively, it's tough to keep that going consistently because you have to make sure the rest of your team is eating too. Think about like any business, right? Like small businesses, podcasts, right? Like everybody knows that somebody's going to make more, somebody's going to make less. But your job, if you're the top dog, is to make sure that your success is not inspiring so much hate because everybody is well taken care of. You saw it in podcasting, right? Like nobody now diminishes like how much, like, it's not a secret how much money that like Joe Budden or Andrew Flagrant make on their respective teams. But it's their job to make sure that everybody else feels like, hey, we are also being well compensated enough where I don't care that you're making this much money. Because if you don't, it's like when you're like, yo, like growing up, right? Like you don't want people around you that don't have money, and you do. Because it's gonna create resentment. Oh, like you fly and you got money and all of that. And I'm over here like broke and like I can't afford to like feed myself or I can't afford to like wear the flyest shit. That creates resentment. That's why the first thing when people get bread is like give the rest of the entourage a piece of it. Because they understand, yo, if they're unhappy, I'm unsafe. And again, Drake brought in a lot of money for the music industry, but it all went to, hey, my team, my label. I felt, I'm sitting there, I feel bad. Like having like darlings, like music industry darlings, like Beyonce and Taylor Swift, just absolutely like laughing, dancing at your demise. It's hard not to show that. Other than that, though, like I thought the Grammys this year was one of the best Grammys in a long, long time. I thought the performers that they picked was it's like everybody who had like a good hit this year. Even like the people like, shout out to Doechii. I know everyone's been giving her flowers, but I'm also going to. What an incredible performance. What a way to introduce yourself to those who are unfamiliar with you potentially. The thing that really annoys me about the Grammys, not Grammys, honestly, the thing that annoys me the most about everything is the group of people that are just so unhappy regardless, because they think that their opinion is so much more valid than anybody else's. It's like, oh, like Doechii's album won, I didn't listen to it, right? This other album should have won. Bro, who are you? You're one of many people that listen to music. It's crazy because then Drake puts out the Party Next Door and Drake snippet, and I don't think it makes the noise that it regularly does. I think like a lot of this is not even like consumer, right? Like you have to think like some of these Drake records that have like come out in the last like 6 months have been hits. Everybody's like, oh, like Drake just needs to make a hit, and then you guys are all going to go back to supporting him. The Camila Cabello record, it's a bop. 2015, when Drake's on his meteoric run, that record is another one dance. His record with Gordo, bop. 2015, that's another too good. But today, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like the machine is not pushing it because the consumers are still, I don't know, expecting Drake. But it's just the records aren't working. Like 2015, if a Party Next Door and Drake leak came out, people would be absolutely just waiting on it. That's not the temperature right now. And I don't even know how Drake comes back around from that because people keep saying, make a hit. He's been making hits. They're not working. I think at a larger, I think it's interesting. Like even the people who won at the Grammys, even Kendrick's speech talking about the art form first, I think it's like a real shift in, and I'm saying that not even just in music only, I'm saying that outside of music, there's a mindset shift or a vibe shift from a me to a we. I think there's such a more emphasis on the collective and the collective good, whether it be in music, whether it be in any other art form, whether it be in the world, that if you're still, hey, I'm him, or I'm bigger than the program, today especially, that's not the temperature. It's not the climate. Whew. Yo, Marvel, I want to get into some Marvel stuff. I want to get into first like the good stuff, and then I want to get into something that kind of annoyed me. Fantastic Four trailer came out this week. Ron, what you think?
Hell yeah.
I thought the same thing.
I'm so here for it.
The Fantastic Four trailer looks good.
I also like how stylized it is.
That part. You got theories about that? They're like it's like definitely a different.
I'm not really I'm not going to be making a whole bunch of theories. I'm just appreciating it for what it is. I'm the type of guy that likes to be surprised. I don't like to come up with 1,000 theories and try and figure out which one's right. I like to walk in and be like, and just appreciate everything that goes on.
I think the stylistic choice is important. I think it's important. I'm sure that there's a bunch of Marvel people that are doing a bunch of theories on why it's stylized like that. But regardless of it, looks fantastic, and it's important.
Yes.
like Marvel needs this year to go really well.
Have you bought tickets for Captain America yet?
No.
I'm actually excited for this. I've been excited since the first trailer dropped.
Of Captain America or
of Captain America?
I'm also excited for that.
I think Captain America can set the tone for the year. And I think if it's good, I think it's going to be a really good year for Marvel.
I agree. I think it's so important that Captain America does really well, and I think it's so important that Fantastic Four does really well. Because Marvel, like, let's call a spade a spade. Since Endgame, right? It's been a struggle. Like, Marvel has been struggling. If you're not paying attention,
outside of Spider-Man,
but Disney just lost something stupid in number of subscribers. Right? The shows, like Spider-Man is always going to be a blockbuster hit because it's built in, right? And Tom Holland is a star and Zendaya is a star. But it's been quiet. So this Fantastic Four movie, this Captain America movie, very important and critical to Marvel that it goes well. Because right now, it's quiet. And I get it. Like, you've had such a dominant run when you think about from Iron Man to Endgame. Like a dominant run, and it's like we think like, oh, you've done this for 10 plus years, you're gonna just continue being able to do it.
There are people that still go back and for purely entertainment purposes to go watch the theater reactions of people watching Endgame.
I'm one of them, bro. Like seeing Cap pick up the shield and get Mjolnir.
Yeah,
like I'm one of them. Getting that reaction firsthand, it brings back like a nostalgia. My cousin Sam was like, yo, he was one of those like super fans that he literally watched some theaters in New York do this where it's like you can watch all of the
before Endgame there were a lot of theaters that were like, we're gonna do a full marathon
so you're like literally in there for 3 days watching all of the Marvel movies up until Endgame. And he was like, yo, at that moment, like that reaction, that was like the peak of cinema. But yo, this year is important. Like the Fantastic Four movie has to go well because it's going to be like the cornerstone, and Marvel needs a star outside of Tom Holland that's going to like lead like in the Robert RDJ type of way.
At the same time, I think the other thing that is going to come up is that Superman trailer looked tough.
I think it's quiet. I think it's quiet.
I think maybe you're on a different side of the internet, but the amount of hype that I've seen for this James Gunn iteration of DC, and I think part of it is off of the hype of James Gunn's previous movies have all been bangers.
I think it's it's so funny. It's the same Drake conversation. I really think that support and wanting it to be good, and I don't know whether it will or will not be good, right? Yeah. But I think a lot of like the wanting it to be good stems from we've seen Marvel dominate for so long, we're tired of it. It's the same Kansas City Chiefs thing, right? It's like you see somebody succeed, you're just like, I'm tired.
I somewhat disagree in the fact that I think it's more that we have seen DC live action be so bad for so long. Like, I think this is like Philadelphia getting excited for the Eagles' first Super Bowl run.
No, absolutely. And I think personally that like DC has better source material. Like when you think about like source material, like I think DC has like some more developed characters, more complex characters.
We can agree to disagree, but you can make the argument for sure.
I think so. Like when I just think about like when you think about how like complex like there's definitely. It definitely is an argument, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about like household names, like before, obviously, like Marvel had its run. If you asked a kid, it would be Superman, Batman, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right. So of that, right? Like you're getting two right there.
I think it was our generation where DC had a generational run in animation because DC comics when we were kids were
good point. And then we also
here.
Like, good point. And then we
had
also
Teen Titans.
And then we also got a bunch
Justice
of Batman
League.
movies.
We had the best Batmans when we were a kid.
Yeah.
And then Marvel had their runs earlier. Like they had the original X-Men, like X-Men 97, iconic. it's so iconic that they brought it back. And, like,
yeah,
did a whole and it's
I'm X-Men
still,
Evolution fan. No, yeah,
so good. And then some of the best Spider-Man cartoons were 90s because that was the original. Forget which version of Spider-Man, but that original like 90s Spider-Man, iconic. And then Spider-Man started to pick up in like in the 10s. We got a couple good iterations, but like Justice League and Teen Titans and then Young Justice, it was like a generational
run. No, I think, like, listen, Marvel needs a big year, and Marvel needing a big year it's exciting because, like, you're going from the casting, you're going from the styling, like, you need to do something that, like, revolutionizes, like, the game again, right? Because, like, Marvel was so good think about even, like, the multiverse, like, DC, like, tried to rip that, right? Because, like, Marvel set the bar, right? In that, you need to now reset a different bar because your audience is tired of whatever has worked. It has, to them, become formulaic. So now you need to, like everybody else, adapt and develop something new. And now there's rumors, and this is where I want to get into my angry rant. Now there's rumors that they may be bringing back Jonathan Majors for Kang. And if I'm Jonathan Majors, I'm looking Disney in the face and saying, fuck you. I want quadruple whatever the fuck you were going to pay me before. Because that, to me, again, like, everything is ruled, like, we always say this, everything is ruled by the dollar, right? They didn't care. When Disney fired him, they did not care about whether he did it or whether he didn't. They cared that it may impact their bottom line. They cared because they figured, oh, our star for our next franchise, people might not come out to support it. It's a dollar decision. Because, again, he beat all of his cases, and now Disney's back at the table. Because they're like, oh, wait, we can make a lot of money here again. If I'm Jonathan Majors, A, I'm not ever coming back, because fuck you. Or B, I'm taking you for everything. I have all the leverage. Y'all need me now. And I do think, like, despite what we were saying about the Fantastic Four and Captain America, I think you need an incredible big bad. I think you need a big bad. Like, the RDJ thing was obviously, like, now, like, you think about it, like, obviously a desperation play.
I will reserve my comments until I see how they do it.
Agree.
I think there are ways that they can do it that will feel really good.
The RDJ one? You're talking about the RDJ as Doctor Doom. No, I agree.
But I 100% agree with, like, you need a good villain.
You need a great villain.
Every single superhero movie that, like, we iconolize, like, that has like Black Panther, The Dark Knight.
Dark Knight Rises.
Like
the villains, the juxtaposition of the villains versus the hero is what gets us intrigued.
Yeah.
Again, sports, it's all of it, right? You need the juxtaposition.
Yeah.
It's literally a political theory, right? Where it's like, yo, the stronger the them, the stronger the us.
Yeah.
Because we need to feel like, hey, this big bad it brings out it's real character writing, right? It's the foil for your hero. That's why the Dark Knight movies are incredible, right?
Yeah.
Each villain is bringing out a portion of Christian Bale's Batman at that time and making him face something about his character. It's when movies and art develop past this is just for entertainment. It's starting to tell a story that resonates deep in the human psyche, to the human emotion. Yo, if I'm Jonathan Majors, I'm asking for a check. Like, if you're bringing me back after abandoning me because, it was in your best interest at that time to do so, I am taking you for everything. Because it's so disingenuous. It's so disingenuous. It's like, wait, you straight up, just before anything actually got decided in the court of law or anything, you just pulled the check because you could. If I'm Jonathan Majors, I'm taking him for everything. Man, whew. Before we get like again, I'm excited. Like as a Marvel fan, I'm excited. Like I actually do want them to bring. I know I'm saying Jonathan Majors should ask for a bag, as he should, but I do want them to bring it back. I think it only helps the Marvel universe to have multiple big bads at a insane level, especially now with the whole like multiverse shit and how you're gonna bring in Secret Wars. Like you need a bunch of big bads to bring this together.
Side note on Marvel, but I think the other thing that's going for them, we were just talking about this, the amount of hype surrounding Marvel Rivals leading into Fantastic Four and Captain America is massive.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the other side. It's like they have a lot of hype going for them right now that this can be a really good conversion or a ginormous flop.
Again, if you're Marvel, all you need is one hit. Because you have a fan base, because of that hype, that's always willing to jump right back on board.
And a quick side note, I also think this is a little bit bigger than Marvel. I think this is Disney as a whole, because now they're not only doing that, but they're also doing things like Andor is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And these are two of the biggest franchises that have had in conversation a very similar problem of fatigue of them doing so many side things and expansions and things that feel like they are fatiguing the audience. And Star Wars is another big culprit of that. And now that they're starting to roll more of these projects and people are being...
I think that's a really, really good point. Like Rem said, like, yo, it's bigger than Marvel. It is. It's Disney.
Yeah.
It's Disney Corp.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's Disney Corp. Because for a long time, because the Marvel movies were doing billions of dollars, because the Star Wars franchises were doing billions of dollars, like the rest of the business didn't really matter. Whether Disney Resorts was making money doesn't really matter, because we got an Endgame and we got another Marvel movie that's going to make $1 billion. But, yo, when they brought back Bob Iger after firing him, that was your biggest tell. Yo, we're in trouble. And again, like Disney is a massive franchise. Like when they lose like money, it's a lot of money that they're losing. And like companies like that, like they're so predicated on being able to consistently show growth year over year. Because if you're an investor, that's the only thing you care about. They don't care about like whether we watch the movies or not, whether we enjoy the movies. That's only a byproduct of whether we buy the tickets to go watch that movie, whether we put dollars there. It's not really the art or whatever, right? Like maybe the people that are making the movies care about the art and whatever. If you're Disney, you just care whether this is making money. Valentine's Day this week. I wanted to talk about this. I don't know if the rest of y'all have ever felt this way. I feel like growing up, I had such an idealized version of love. And as I've gotten older, some of that mystique and magic of love has kind of been stripped away, whether it's personal, whether it's intimate, whether it's friendships. I had this like magical, like, oh, everything is like a Friends TV show or How I Met Your Mother. Like I'm Ted Mosby and like this is going to be like so magical. And I think as you get older, you actually realize it's like none of those things. Like it's none of this fairy tale things. Love, friendships, family. But in a more beautiful way, it's actually so much more magical because it's not that. I think when you are able to see something so perfect, you look at it and you don't really there's no magic in it, right? It's like almost robotic. When something is so perfect, I associate that with like AI. Like I associate that with like a machine did this. But when like the human experience, I think is it being flawed and imperfect is the beauty of love. I think when you can look at your mom and look at your dad and be like, oh, like you've hurt me and I've hurt you, but you still love me and I still love you. Like that is the magic of love. When you can like look at your partner and be like, hey, I've had a rough day. You've had a rough day, but we're still going to show up for each other in our not perfect states. That's love. I think when you see that in yourself, you appreciate it so much more because you realize like love is this beautifully complex thing. And I think that's like real, like I think that's like the difference between being a child and being like a real adult is understanding that. I think we like lose sight of, and I think like, I don't know, like I feel like a lot of it is like the social media perfection, or I think it's like the perfection that social media kind of is a proponent of, that we kind of lose sight that like, yo, life isn't perfect. Love isn't perfect, but that is good. That's like magical. Like we don't want it to be perfect. It would be so boring if it was. Like it would be so boring if like, oh, like everything in your world, like everybody just was so like, that's just not the reality of what it is. I'm excited for Valentine's Day. I think like the real lovers like always know like any excuse to really love and like really, I love seeing it too. Like I think like the cornball in me like really loves, and you know, you could talk about the commercialization of like another holiday and how like, oh, every day is Valentine's Day. I think any excuse and any reason to like go celebrate somebody you love is incredible, and should be taken. So I hope y'all planning something good. I hope it's I tell people like, I'm like, yo, like get flowers, write a note, even if it's not a partner, like somebody, any excuse to give somebody some love. Yo, Rem, did you watch the Diddy doc?
Oh, I did not.
So the Diddy doc, Fall of Diddy, is out now, and I watched all 6 episodes. And again, the takeaways, the obvious takeaways are obviously like, holy shit, Diddy's a monster. The other takeaway that I had, and I guess the observation is, what is it? Is there a correlation between monstrous personalities and success? Is there a correlation between those who want power or accumulate power and destructive behaviors? I'm watching the Diddy doc, and again, there's no questioning, right? Like that like Diddy was at one point like considered like the epitome of black excellence. And he was like so wildly successful at such an early age. But then I think like, yo, is there an overlap between like, why is it always that we're hearing about such powerful people have such heinous crimes behind them? Like, is there something about the craving of power that creates, like for you to succeed at such a high level, it does take a little bit of psychopathic behavior. Like if you think about like anybody, whether it's Diddy, whether it's like Jeff, whether it's Elon, like to get to that level of I'm so powerful in the world takes a certain level of psychopathic behavior. And that made me really, that itself, like I've always been like a very, very like free capitalist type of person. Like I truly am, like I'm a capitalist at heart. But sometimes you think about how the system is currently shaped and you're like, becoming a billionaire takes a certain level of psychopathy that is kind of unsafe for the world, because now not only do you have so much power and wealth, you have so much power and wealth as a person who probably has a lot of internal shit wrong with you. There's like three, I just saw it recently. There's basically like three archetypes of founders. Like there's three very most common archetypes in founders. And it's like, one is like you're adopted. One is like really rough, traumatic childhood. I'm not remembering the third, but like there's like essentially these like, basically you have to have come from real adversity, because for you to want to succeed so wholly and so completely, you need to have felt at a visceral young age that I need to be the biggest thing in the world. Otherwise, like, my life is going to be horrible, or people aren't going to like me. Like, we're kind of perpetuating megalomania through capitalism. You think there's an overlap? Like, what is it?
You ever read the book 48 Laws of Power?
Yes. One of my favorite. Like, I read that at I have a very bad. If you've read 48 Laws of Power, nobody should be recommending that to anybody that hasn't had their full frontal lobe developed yet.
I can agree with that.
Because I read that, like, very honestly, I read that at 17 and it created a very Machiavellian view of the world.
You need a level of reading comprehension to read that book and really get what the author's saying. But have you read the book that came after that, Laws of Human Nature?
No.
Okay. One of the things that he talks about is, and this actually has been getting brought up a lot recently, and he's talked about this in other podcasts, but other people have also talked about this, is I think particularly over the last year, it's been talked about a lot of why do we choose certain types of people more often than others to be in positions of power.
Okay.
Literally exactly what you're talking
And
about. And part of that is it's like a lot of times the people who are willing to play those games are the types of people who are like have less qualms about crossing lines and doing things that would garner more power for the sake of power.
they have less qualms
About doing the things that cross lines
to amass power.
to amass power. And one of the things, and he says this in the opening of the 48 Laws of Power, but he makes this more of a point in his new book because this is one of the criticisms of the 48 Laws of Power, is that the 48 Laws of Power was not intended to be a user manual for how to do the manipulation things. It was a manual for the things that those types of people do and how to guard yourself against them.
Okay.
And the laws of human nature, he digs into that more specifically to correct the mistake that he feels was not emphasized enough in the 48 Laws of Power, because those things are games that people play to get more power.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Because I feel that on a very, very visceral level when it comes to business. I notice that there's a lot of times people that may be quote unquote passing me in business, and it's because they don't have qualms about certain things that I have moral qualms about.
This is the other thing. This is going to be a personal opinion, but I think the other side of the coin is that that type of politics and the things that you need to do to step forward, that is a skill in of itself. The politics of power and decision making is a skill in and of itself. And I feel like most people who aren't specifically they don't have such a huge hole that they need to fill it they don't need to gain power in order to fill that hole. They don't look as that as the goal, and therefore they recognize less the importance of learning that specific skill. Yeah. I think sometimes a lot of people tend to have a fantasy of meritocracy should be the way. It's like, oh, if I'm the better accountant, then I will get more accounting opportunities. but that's not necessarily how that works.
Not
And
what
a
it
great
is.
analogy is like social media. It's like there's a difference between the best fitness trainer and the person who knows the most to be a good trainer and the best fitness influencer. And the best fitness influencer doesn't need to necessarily know the best information of like how to help people train and like all of those health facts the most, because they have the skill of the social media
thing.
marketing.
But
The marketing and the fitness thing is not the same skill.
I think, and this is where, like, this is what really pisses me off, right? This is what really, really pisses me off, is when people sell a value that they're not really equipped to provide. I think a lot of people, like, a
lot of those people, what they do is like, I'm good at marketing, so I'm just going to pick a thing and then I'll market that.
Exactly.
Like the fitness influencer who doesn't really do all of the fitness research and then just like, well, I have some assets that help me market fitness stuff, so I'm just going to do that.
Exactly. I've been honest. Like, I don't really do outbound messages for business. Like I've until recently, right? Because somebody was like, you're crazy for not doing it. Because I'm always like,
accurate.
Am I equipped to truly provide a service to you? Because I'm like, because all of my business has always come from, I think you would be really good at this. So like, you should go do it. Right. But other people don't have such qualms about their own skill sets. So even if they can't do the job, they're going to go tell people, I'm about to go do this job.
You know what's so interesting? I just had a conversation over brunch with a friend of mine over the weekend, like literally last Sunday. And he is, funny, kind of continuing on this analogy that we were using before, he is a trainer. And one of the things that came up in conversation was how now him being a trainer in a formal setting and like that being his job, him having to actually approach people and learning to actually have confidence and like communicate confidence in his skills. The fact that he has to do that, like, no, I can be the one to help you. And that he had to flip a switch and to getting to that level of like trusting and okaying himself to do that type of communication. That was not just like, oh, this is a problem, you should go solve it this way. It's like, no, you have a problem and I can help you find the solution.
Honestly, like a lot of like our business, like again, we're gonna get into like some of the chat creative business, right? That's a lot of it. What it was, right? Like a lot of people came to me and said, "Hey, I have this issue," right? And then I would just be like, "Oh, like here, like this is the solve," right? Okay, if I know that this is the solve and I can help you solve it, then that's my value. Yeah. Like that's my value. Like when I think about because sometimes like somebody asked me like this week, they were like, "Hey, like when you put these contracts together, right? Like ethically, like how do you feel that?" Like, what value are you bringing to this that you feel like you should be compensated for, right? And I had to ask myself that. I was like, am I just middlemaning a check here? Because there's a lot of y'all that are just middlemaning a check. Like I talk about,
that literally is a value. That's
yes.
Arbitrage. That is literally arbitrage.
Yes, but I have but when you overcharge for that arbitrage, I say this about artist managers all the time. A lot of y'all managers are literally just responding to somebody else's email.
I'm gonna push back on that. I don't think there's an overcharge of people if somebody pays it.
No.
No. But that's
completely disagree. Completely disagree.
Hear me out. It's not that they're above market rate. It's that like they are charging an amount that people are okay with paying.
No,
this applied.
No.
Curve type of
I'm
not saying it's okay.
This is what happens though. This is what happens. Like let's use the artist manager example, right? Artist managers come to the artist and say, industry standard 10%. Okay, cool. But you're not providing industry standard levels of work. You're providing less than 10% of value. I know a lot of artist managers that just respond to DMs. And then they expect, I should be compensated 10 to 20%. That's like, for what? Like, just because somebody, like, you dupe somebody, like, I hate that concept, right? Oh, like somebody's paying it. Yes, that is a poor mistake on the artist. But you are still finessing that person.
I didn't say it wasn't a finesse.
Okay. Like,
this might be a little bit of semantics, but I think there's a difference between the concept of overcharging. Like I think the only thing that is overcharging is when you are charging a price that nobody will actually pay.
Okay. No, yeah.
I think there's like fair value, then there's exploitation, and then there's overcharging is the rate that people won't actually pay.
Let's call it. So I think that they're exploiting the artists.
Yes.
I think artist managers are exploiting the artists.
And I think part of it is like, I feel like a duck should be called a duck. And if you're exploiting something, then that should be called exploitation, not
but this is what pisses me off. Most of these artists don't know that they're being exploited.
They don't. Well, the other thing, a lot of artists, and we've had this conversation before, of like, a lot of artists don't recognize that they're a business and that they need to know business.
But they don't know that they're being exploited because somebody comes to you and says, hey, the industry standard is 10%. Right? Yeah. And you're thinking, okay, like I'm getting, and you know what? They might even say, yo, the industry standard is 20%. I got you for 10. Yo, the industry standard being 20% is assuming that they're doing a checklist of things that most of y'all artist managers are not doing.
Well, it also assumes that like the jobs that you do book come from them.
Again, another assumption that's not, your talent got people there. Your artist manager did not. Like, that's the part that people don't realize. Like, they think like, oh, I got this manager and he's getting me these gigs. Unless he's actually actively seeking out to put you in rooms, your talent got that. That opportunity of you performing at that concert, unless he actively walked to that promoter and said, yo, my artist should be on that lineup, your talent got that.
That's what a good manager would do. But if you're just replying to the emails that people are already sending you, that's an assistant.
Exactly. If you're paying, Rem said it beautifully. If your manager is just responding to inbound emails, you don't have a manager. You have an assistant. And then that's fine. Maybe you need an assistant, but then they should be compensated as an assistant and not a manager. Why are you giving up equity in your business to your assistant? Ask yourself, if you called a spade, if you called a duck, and you said, hey, that's my assistant because that's the work that they're doing, you would never give up equity to your assistant. Those are the things that really piss me off, though, Rem, because
these are the two things. These are the two things that I personally feel like that are like manager things and not assistant things. It's like, and are deserving of equity. It's like, are you bringing in, or are you negotiating to a level that I would not have been able to negotiate to?
Added value.
Yes.
Added value. Always. That's like, yo, that is my name. Like, my girl asked me this week, right? She's all like, yo, like when you think about business, like, cause again, like my big thing has always been, right? And like my girl always says like, that's like her favorite thing about me has been like ethical business. Like I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I try my best, right? I try to say like whatever price, like it's not just some price that I think I can get from you. It's a price that I truly think is fair, right? Based off of what my team's value is doing, what my value is doing, right? I try. But she said, like, how are you establishing that? And I said, very simply, it's value added. For a contract to be fair, it's value added. Because then it's up to you as the person who's hiring me to figure out what that value is worth to you. Of course, we may have a difference. I may say, hey, I'm going to spend 10 hours on this project, right? And I value my time at X. And you might say, you know what, your time is not actually X. That's the negotiation piece. But I think like the biggest pet peeve is when people say, I'm bringing XYZ value, so pay me this, and they never bring the value. Like that to me is like exploitation, robbery, like that's that. And you're doing it on people, like that's like another huge pet peeve. You're doing it on people that just don't know better. And I'm not, again, that's like not, this is not like, oh, woe is the victim, right? Because you should know better. If you're an artist, like you should know better. Like if you're an artist who's serious about this shit, you should know, hey, I'm not giving 20% without real value added here. I guess I could tell this story now, right? Like a year ago, I had somebody come to me and say, like, yo, like, we're going to change your life. I don't think I've ever shared this, but I had somebody come to me saying like, yo, we're going to change your life. And I said, okay. And, I'm excited because the guy is like showing me like his credentials and it seems like it checks out. And then I'm hearing the conversation and we're going back and forth. And, he's telling me all the things he would do for me. At one point, there's like a gap in communication. And, I haven't heard from him in a couple weeks. And I hit him back. I'm like, hey, like, are we still doing the plans that we had? Because, he's talking about like, yo, I'll get you every Bollywood A-lister. I'll get you into the Indian World Cup. All of these media opportunities, they're yours. I'm like, all right, cool. And then I talked to him and he's like, yeah, but yo, before I do any step, we got to get the business right. And that was my first red flag. I was like, you came to me. You came to me. I didn't seek you out. You came to me and said, hey, I'm going to provide X value. But you haven't proven. I've proven whatever value you think that I have that got you to come to me, I've proven. That's why you're here. But why the fuck are you here? What value have you proven? Like, what value have you proven to me? Like, you're saying, oh, like, this is my business. And you're saying, hey, I'm going to add value. But now you're asking for 50% of my business before any of that value? And I'm not saying, like, yo, right off the bat, like, yo, I'm expecting all the value and then, let's figure out the business later. But show something in good faith. Show that you're even capable of providing the value that you're saying that you can provide. Think about this podcast. Think about any business. Before you go get funding, before you try to 10x this, you have to show that you could do it at some level. How, like it's the equivalent of if I walked into the Netflix's boardroom right now and said, yo, give me a podcast. I think I'm the best podcaster in the world. Give me a Netflix deal. They're going to be like, wait, what? Who are you? Unless I've proven, yo, I can host a show. Again, it might not even be at the level, but I can host a show. I know what it's like to produce. I know what it's like to develop content. Then I can say, yo, this is my value. And then we can extract and figure out what that number is on my value. But if I can't do it, like if I'm an artist manager and I'm just saying, oh, I can do those things, where's the proof? And then the worst thing, and then this is a double-edged sword, because once somebody has proof that they could do it once, they think that justifies them being able to do it forever. That's not also real. They might have gotten lucky. Like, I know a bunch of artist managers that just got a hot artist that basically sold himself. And now they're riding those coattails forever. Man, it pisses me off. AP Dhillon announced for the NBA All-Star game. No real takeaway here. Do I think AP's going to be good? Yes. I think brown dudes, like, listen, we may not be athletically gifted enough to make it to the league all the time, but we will give you that work at your local LA Fitness. And the NBA All-Star game is your local LA Fitness game. So I actually am so excited to see AP cook here. I think it's huge for the NBA to tap AP. I think it's a huge opportunity for AP to do it. I'm excited to see AP in it, and like I'm glad that the NBA kind of identified AP as a talent like that. We had Hassan do it, and Hassan was nice. So AP, I've never seen him ball, but I'm assuming, brown dudes just love basketball. Like we love this shit, right? Like, and we may not be like athletically gifted enough to make it to the league all the time, but we will give you that work in that LA Fitness. So he might be the one. I got a lot of things going on behind the scenes business side, and hopefully I'll be able to kind of share those things with you guys in the coming weeks. we've been honestly just, obviously testing and experimenting here with Q&As, doing a bunch of things, but keep the feedback coming. Also, something I just want to say as like a PSA. I never, because sometimes like I be DMing a lot of people and we be going back and forth on virtual, and sometimes things can get lost there. If you ever come to me with feedback, and even if it's critical or what have you, always know that it's, as long as it's respectful, I never feel away and there's no beef. Like, we can have a very engaged conversation, a very passionate conversation, but it's never any beef. Everything I say up here is with utmost love. And if you feel triggered by something that I'm saying up here, then it's probably because there's something that you're doing incorrectly that's triggering you, because I'm calling it out. It's never to anybody specifically, ever. Listen, if it's about somebody specifically, I will put a name on the bullet and you will know. But anytime I'm saying anything, it's a critique of something larger that I've identified. Whether you agree with it or not, that's why we're here, to have this conversation. Thank y'all for listening. Peace.